Howdy, and welcome to episode 3737. As Bryant said it, to the back of the End Zone podcast. I'm Josh Reisick here with Bryant Koleski. Obviously, we are back at home over Zoom this week because we're back home
for holidays, man.
Yeah, holidays coming up. Merry Christmas to all of y'all tuning in and happy holidays. We hope that as you're watching this episode, you guys are excited to get in on the family festivities, whatever traditions you have with your families. But
watching some bowl games, and we had some last weekend, some good games. The Sun Belt not faring too well, but it is what it is.
Hey, and going into this weekend on the 23rd on Saturday, South Alabama takes on Eastern Michigan at home for their bowl game, even though they're not the actual home team. But we might get into a little bit of that, but I think you can go, Brian.
I was just saying, I mean that'll be some. We got some other good games. Troy's playing Duke. I know Syracuse and South Florida are playing. There's some good bowl games on this weekend. But in a couple of weeks, you got the playoff, and everybody's excited for that. Except maybe Florida State fans, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But going into this episode, we're gonna get right into the main topic of conversation right now, National Signing Day. As we're recording this, that happened today, but as you all are watching this, it'll be a few days after National Signing Day, but some big stuff on National Signing Day today. Obviously, we'll get into some of the stuff with maybe Florida losing some commits within the last couple of months, but then also still getting two really top dog 5-stars. Some other schools too, like Dylan Raiola, and what he did, if he made the right decision, some stuff with Bama and Julian Sayin and losing Edric Houston. I know Brian's a little pissed off about that. It's got a bone to pick with me, but I mean, we're going to dive into it, man.
Oh, yeah. And we got some NFL stuff too. A lot of, as we transition from the college season slowly coming to an end, need something to talk about. So, of course, the NFL is always there. Some NFL regular season coming down to the wire, especially in the AFC, when there's several different teams that could make a push at the end to make the playoff. NFC is kind of more set in stone, but still some divisions to be sorted out, division winners, like the NFC South, which is just a dumpster fire in all four teams, but still one of them has to win and make the playoffs.
Hey, talk about the Texans. Whatchamacallit? I mean, they taken down the – wait, who did they play this week? Oh, yeah, they took the Titans this week by 3 without CJ Stroud, with Case Keenum at the helm. That was wild, at least for me to watch. But I mean, we'll get into all of that. But I mean, let's get right into it. National Signing Day, man. Before we dive right into National Signing Day recap and thoughts from Bryant and I, we would like to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor being 251 Pool Works, family owned and operated. 251 Pool Works offers pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair. They serve the greater Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola areas. And if you're needing any monthly pool cleaning service and or repair, give them a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. Obviously, I'm in Illinois right now. It's a little chilly up here, and people's pools are already well shut down by now. And I mean, in Mobile, people should be, but if you're not yet,
it's definitely a little chilly here this week in old Alabama. I know this morning when I stepped out, it was like 34 degrees. So
definitely. Yeah, you texted and you were like, it's freezing. Yeah, I woke up this morning and it was like 12 degrees outside. So
I mean,
Brian, you don't even know what the cold is. Don't even talk to me about it. No,
it was cold to me down here. But anyway, our other sponsor, I'd like to recognize them as well. Now Fitness. Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center based in Groveville, Alabama. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit, other workouts, and they help local athletes train and get in their best shape. Call 251-269-3065. Talking about local athletes, I mean, a couple or 3 Gulf Coast teams took home an Alabama State championship. So, and they had a lot to do with that. So go check them out.
Heck yeah, like literally got to get in shape. But let's get right into National Signing Day with some of these guys,
which should be a holiday, by the way.
It should be a holiday. And obviously this is the early period of National Signing Day because there's another National Signing Day in 2024, I believe.
I wouldn't even call this the early period anymore. I mean, most of the recruits,
all the big time recruits sign now. I think back in the day that some of them used to wait until after the new year, But now I feel like majority of them
Well,
do
not
it.
even like the big time recruits. Like South had a bunch of guys signed today. I know Troy did as well, and not even like your big time recruits for your big time programs. I know there were like 15 or 16 that signed for Bama today. Probably a couple more to go as the day goes along. And then you got a couple in February, like with Ryan Williams. I mean, he reclassified, but he wants to sign in February on his birthday. I know Auburn's pushing for him as well. We'll see what happens there, but more than likely he'll stick with the Tide. But a lot going down. I'm gonna get into like my biggest loser, and that right now is Florida. I don't. Their class is not like they started with like a top four class, and then they lost a safety to Texas, and then they're having guys portal out, and of course Billy Napier had the ball rolling before the season started. He was hot on the recruiting trail. But then as the season went along and you saw what Florida was this season, it really just started to unwound guys hitting the portal. Then they lose a couple recruits here and there.
They didn't just hold up. I don't mean to interrupt you, Brian. They didn't
Are you
just
good?
lose a couple. They lost. I have a list right here. They lost 4-star defensive lineman Nasir Johnson. They lost 4-star DB Wardell Mack, 4-star pass rusher Jamonta Waller. Then after they lose all those guys, they lose a 3-star defensive lineman Kendall Jackson, and then a 5-star DB and Xavier Filsame, and however you say his name. But it's like those were crucial losses. And
Yeah.
it's like, yes, and I know you'll get into it with like their top key players that they still were able to keep, but like, what is going on?
I just think that I think these players are kind of seeing that it's not working out. And like last week, the SEC released the full 2024 schedules, not just the SEC schedule, like conference schedule, but also the full schedules. There's Florida's schedule is probably up there with one of the hardest in the country. They play not only do they play the three Power Five teams in the country, or no, not the three Power Five teams in Florida. They play Florida State, Miami, and UCF, but they also got to play Georgia. They got to play Texas. They got to play Ole Miss. They got to play LSU. They got a tough schedule, and a lot of people are thinking that Billy Napier is not even going to last midway through the season, which I don't think he is. If he loses early to Miami and then he loses to UCF, which I think that one's like right before they start, deep conference play. I think you got to let him go. I mean, so I think the thing with Florida is you don't know Billy Napier's status the next couple of years. You don't. I mean, and so that's just me. Now there's
Yeah,
another guy
you don't.
there's another guy they might lose too. Zay Mincy, a safety. Bama and Miami are trending for him as well. He was supposed to sign this week, but he's not making his decision until the Under Armour All American Bowl. But that's a name to watch there as far as more Florida recruits there. But they were able to retain some guys, Lagway and LJ
Yeah,
McCray.
yeah, Lagway and LJ McCray, and according to 247 Sports, Lagway obviously the fourth best recruit in this class. LJ McCray the sixth best. But if I'm a Florida fan, I'm concerned. Yes, you get
Yeah.
2 top 6 recruits, but with how much they lost out of that, the amount of like what 5 or 4 4 stars, and then a couple 3 stars here and there too, and then another 5-star. It's like those are
Yeah.
guys that would have put you up here in the draft class, and you're down here. Like you said, they started off like a top 5 recruiting class of this year. Going into today, I'm pretty sure they had the 10th best recruiting class, and they finished with number 16. So they didn't fade off too much, but it's like they're still not where they want to be, especially in the SEC, making that jump, especially with next year with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. And another team that's making a jump next year that I think lost today too, and not just today, they've lost this whole recruiting cycle, would be UCLA. And a lot of people have been talking about UCLA, and
I haven't really been following them.
no, but the thing with them is that I didn't really follow their recruiting class that much, but UCLA is a team that is making a jump to the Big Ten next year. So they need a huge improvement. Obviously, the Pac-12 was good this year. They always are all right, but they already lost Dante Moore, their starting freshman quarterback, going into a questionable season next year. And they finished this recruiting cycle at the number 17 spot in the Big Ten. They finished with the 17th best recruiting class in the Big Ten, which is awful, and number 60 overall. And I'm like,
Yeah.
for UCLA, for the brand name of them, and I know that like USC has made that jump over UCLA. It's clear and obvious, but it's like for them coming over to the Big Ten, that's awful. Like being number 60 overall in this recruiting cycle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. The only class that's behind UCLA in the Big Ten too is Northwestern, and it's like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Well, I think the thing with I just think they got to adjust. I think they got to adjust. I think they got to. I mean, you're in LA, so I mean, I know probably UCLA football is not the forefront of the university. Like, I don't think it's like that's the problem with some of these West Coast teams, and it's not all of them. There's some like USC, Washington, Oregon, that are still prominent and still have high recruiting classes and stuff like that. But some of them like UCLA, um, Stanford, Cal, football is just not like down here in the South and in the Midwest, Big Ten and the SEC, and what the teams coming over to these conferences will have to realize, and why I mean, and I'm gonna say it right now, I think Texas and Oklahoma are better suited for the SEC right now than say Washington, USC, and UCLA are for the Big Ten. I think Oregon is probably the only one out of that four coming to the Big Ten that is ready to compete in the Big
Oh,
Ten
easily,
right
easily.
then.
But going back to that point about UCLA is they're in LA. You know that they have the opportunities to get NIL to kids, which is
Yeah.
questionable why they're 60th in this recruiting class. And is this a questionable upcoming season for Chip Kelly possibly? Because this is going into his
Yeah.
his 7th year recruiting, and you know what I'm saying? Like hasn't quite met expectations. I think they might keep him for another 2-3 years. Obviously, making that Big Ten jump, but say within the first 2-3 years, if he fails to do well in the Big Ten, do you think that
Yeah.
UCLA parts ways?
Maybe. I mean, I think they'll give him 1 year. Like, I think they'll give him a couple of years in the Big Ten because that'll be like you'll want to see how they transition. But like I said, I don't. And another thing that and Chip Kelly brought this up in his press conference the other day. I don't know if you saw it. But like one of his like pre-bowl press conferences, but or not pre-bowl, maybe after. I don't know. It was a press conference after a bowl or before a bowl game. They were asking him about the calendar and stuff like that. Like the calendar is like the college football calendar, and a lot of people in the media have been talking about this. It's kind of screwed up right now. That during once the regular season and conference championships coming to an end, before bowl prep, especially the teams that make a bowl game, you're immediately having to worry about signing day, and then the transfer portal window opens immediately after conference championships come to an end, after the playoff is decided, and so it's kind of all that stuff is mushed in together, and you're also having to, you know, Jake mentioned this or mentioned this on his show, that while you got to go ready to play a bowl game, you also got to try and recruit. You got to keep guys from that got to re-recruit your own team as well because of the transfer portal, and so there are
Yep.
things you gotta manage, and so I think and there's a lot of stuff he alluded to that. So I mean, if you check out his press conference, he talked about um, the state of the sport right now and stuff like that. And I agree with a lot of what he said. But I mean, UCLA, I haven't paid attention enough. So I don't know whether or not to call him a loser or a winner. But I tell you a winner right now, and I hate to say this as an Alabama fan, but Auburn is trending up. Auburn is
Auburn
a
is.
team that they landed. They didn't land KJ Bolden. He went to Georgia. He flipped from FSU to Georgia, but they landed two 5-star receivers. They landed
There we
another couple wide receivers. Got one on the transfer portal. Then they're fixing to have some guys come back. Keontae Scott. Um, some other guys coming back. I can't think of their names. Um, and some other guys coming back next year. Hugh Freeze is putting together a recruiting class, one of the better recruiting classes in recent years for Auburn. Now the next step is, can you stack those recruiting classes? Can you, after a great recruiting class this year in 2024, can you keep that going into 2025? Can you steal some more, like a Perry Thompson from Alabama? Can you flip another guy from? Can you keep in-state guys still? Can you? And that's the thing. And Auburn seems to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Whether it translate to the field, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think another team that's trending in the right direction, more or less because of one specific recruit, and I don't know if you know where I'm going with this right now, but
I think I do.
That's the Nebraska
Yep.
Cornhuskers. And I mean, and I don't want to say that Dylan Raiola completely turned around this program, but in a sense, I think that he did, because this is Nebraska's getting the highest ranked recruit that they ever have, and I don't want to hype up Dylan Raiola too much, because not that I have beef against him, but I think that there could maybe be some character issues or commitment issues because of the fact that he started out committed to Ohio State, then he committed to Georgia, then now he committed to Nebraska. And I know that his uncle is like the offensive line coach there, that his dad played at Nebraska. So family ties does make sense. It does make sense that he's going back to where his family's rooted in Nebraska. But it's like, will he turn around this program? And I think he can. Nebraska got an additional five or six 4-stars on top of
Yeah.
signing him. They had a top 25 recruiting class this year. And I mean, we'll see what Dylan Raiola can do. I don't know.
I think the thing with that is can't okay, now you got your guy. Now you got a top quarterback recruit. You got, with what you just alluded to, like the supposed savior of the program, the guy that'll turn it all around. Can you capitalize off that? Can you capitalize off that momentum? Maybe pitch to some recruits in the transfer portal, or some recruits that are still out there in high school or in the next year's class. Hey,
Yeah.
I got this quarterback, 5-star, one of the top ones in the nation. We're building
Especially
something here.
especially with the portal right now too. Say like freshmen or sophomores that are in the portal, that could be a destination landing spot that most people wouldn't have thought of for top
Or
transfer.
even veterans. I mean, Evan Stewart from Texas A&M entered in
Yeah,
the portal yesterday, or on Tuesday, and people think it's Bama right now, but a team could always come into play, like a Nebraska who just landed Raiola, or a USC that just landed Will Howell, or not Will Howard, or a team that lands a top transfer quarterback. Like, first of all, Syracuse. Talk about Syracuse is on a roll, landing Kyle McCord,
and
defensive
the funny
lineman from
speaking,
A&M.
yeah, speaking of that though, with Cal McCord, it's funny because going back to Dylan Raiola, like 2 weeks ago when Cal McCord was flirting with Nebraska, everyone was like, "What the heck?" Matt Rule said he was going to pay $2 million to get an all-star elite quarterback, and everyone's like, "Why the hell is Cal McCord talking to him?" And then out of the blue, not out of the blue, it was kind of expected. People had talked about it in the past before Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia. People talked about him possibly committing to Nebraska, and then of course Matt Rule gets his $2 million quarterback, and that's just a crazy thing with NIL right now too, and with other things like that, like going into talking about Bama now losing out to Ohio State on Houston, and it's like,
I mean, I'm not gonna get too upset about it. I mean, yeah, when it initially happened, and then once I heard what the story was, he told Bama staff that this or Wednesday morning he was going to that Bama was the pick. He's going to commit to Bama. Then 20 minutes before Ohio State gave him a call. I don't mean there's some rumors. I don't know if they're rumors. I mean, it hasn't totally been confirmed, but apparently Ohio State hired his coach that was from Buford, Georgia, Buford High School, and did that change everything? Or they offered him more NIL. I don't know what it was. I mean, I'm not gonna fault. I'm not gonna get mad at the kid for making a decision that he wanted to. That's not. I mean, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna shame a high school kid or an 8 or 17, 18-year-old. I'm not gonna do that because that's just stupid anyway, and it's not right. I mean, he made a decision that was best for him. But the thing that gets me is I wouldn't say it's a cheap move, but hiring his coach just to land the recruit just doesn't seem right to me. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know that rubs me the wrong way. But I mean, I get it. I get it's the same thing with like NIL, using NIL to recruit and to build super teams. I get it. So I mean, I get
at
it.
the same time though, too. At the same time too, though, like, and I don't want to try and degrade Edric Houston at all because he is a phenomenal athlete. I know that any team in the country would have wanted him at the same time. But like I texted you because Bryant texted me shortly before him announcing who he was signing with, and Bryant was like, "Oh, Bama's gonna get him. Bama's flipping him." And
Because
I was
he was a Bama lot Wednesday morning.
exactly, and I texted Bryant back, and I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, it's one player, and I was like, we'll be fine in the end. And it's like at the end of the day, like I don't think it depends. Like one player can make that much of a difference to a certain program depending on it, but it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like Bama
Yeah.
and Ohio State are going to be just fine. If either of them didn't get, like, say Ohio State didn't get Eder Houston and Bama got him, like either program would still be just fine without him.
Oh
And it's
yeah,
like,
and Bama's already got a loaded defensive line. I think the thing was is I think Ohio State was going to play him at his normal position at the edge spot, and then but Bama wanted to move him inside on the defensive line, which the Bama's got a loaded edge and defensive line room, and we just landed LT Overton from Texas A&M, former former 5-star recruit in the class of 2022. That's another thing to talk about. A&M, all those every just I'm going off on a off topic, but talk about A&M. Every 4 and 5-star recruit that was part of that number one A&M class in 2022 in the portal are gone somewhere else. With Evan Stewart declaring yesterday, every one of those guys gone. But anyway,
hey, that's the Kirby effect, man. Or not Kirby effect. I don't know why. Jimbo effect. I don't know.
that's the firing Jimbo effect.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
but
That's what
yeah,
happens. You pay your
I
coach.
think we'll be fine off with that without him. Like I said, we landed a lot of defensive talent in last year's class. This year, I think we focused more on offense because we got 4 receivers coming in. We got a quarterback coming in. Last year and then this year we focused heavily on offense. Last year we focused heavily on defense. I think we like kind of go in between each year. Like one year we'll like every other year we'll focus on defense. Every other year we'll focus on offense. I mean, we'll be fine without him. I would have liked because we were neck and neck with Georgia for that number one class until Georgia flipped KJ Bolden. But we were neck and neck with Georgia, and if we landed Houston just for a moment, we'd have been above Georgia. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But speaking of Georgia, man, like, and I know we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but I mean, even after not getting the playoff, what Kirby is doing there is something absolutely insane. Like, obviously, getting KJ Bolden, number one safety in the class, like cherry on top. They had 22 blue chip prospects that they got to sign today in this recruiting class. It's like obviously KJ Bolden, number one safety. They had Ellis Robinson, number one corner. They had Justin Williams, the number one linebacker. Then they had Chris Cole, another linebacker, who was
Nate Frazier, top running back in the class.
Yeah, literally. Then they got Jaden Riddell, the number 4 tight end. Then they had 6 overall offensive linemen that were blue chips that signed with them.
Oh, you see the size? You talking about those offensive linemen? Have you seen the size of those offensive linemen?
It's just crazy because I mean, like I started off that list with like naming off defensive players. Obviously, the Georgia defense has always been elite, especially under Kirby. But it's like, holy crap! Like Georgia really went all in on this recruiting class.
Well, the thing about KJ, and KJ is a guy kind of like Caleb Downs in last year's class, where he can come in and make an impact at Georgia right away. He can play at Georgia right away. He could have played at Florida State right away. He could have played at Auburn right away. Auburn was making a late push for him as well. I think Auburn actually finished second for him this time around. But I digress, and I'm glad Auburn didn't get him out. Rather him at Georgia than Auburn. But anyway, rather him at Florida State than both of them. But
yeah,
he was going to flip to Georgia or Auburn anyway, I believe. But he's one of those guys that can come in and start day one. So I mean, Georgia's got a good one. Like I said, I'm glad he's not. But I'm glad he's not going to Auburn. But talking about Florida State, I think the fact that they've been left out of the play, they were left out of the playoff. I think that hurt them so much because they've now lost 2 5-star recruits in 2 days. And on Wednesday they lost 5-star defensive lineman I think it's Armando Blount. He flipped to Miami, and KJ Bolden flipped to Georgia, and so Florida that can kind of concern you as a Florida State fan, but not really that much because Mike Norvell still has the ball rolling. He's still got a good class coming in, top 10 class.
Yeah,
and then
Ohio. I was going to say Ohio State lost a couple guys too. It wasn't really anything huge, I guess, at the same time because they lost a 4-star running back. Then they also lost a 4-star wide receiver. But it's like they're already getting the receiver recruits, and they already have James Peoples, who's another 4-star recruit. Obviously, getting Edric Houston. They have Aaron Scott, a corner, Mylan Graham. Like they're still getting the recruits. Jeremiah Smith, whether you say or not that he's going to turn in his letter of intent or not.
I'm sure he will. He's just created a lot of drama.
Yeah, he just a little bit, but
But no,
I
I think with Bama, I think the only real one that we lost or our flip was Perry Thompson, the kid from Foley, 5-star wide receiver. He flipped to Auburn, which you know it is what it is. But the one we cannot lose is Ryan Williams, and he'll like I said earlier in the show, he'll sign in February. That's a kid that I'm looking forward to. He reclassified this year, and he was already the number one wide receiver in next year's class. He's now the number 3 wide receiver behind Smith and Coleman. He's the number 10 player overall. I'm excited for him, his speed and just like he has that it factor. I've seen him play multiple times. I'm excited for that kid. Like I said, Auburn's pushing for him as much as they can. They'll make a good effort, but I think he'll ultimately stick with Bama. But National Signing Day, it's always you gotta love it. You gotta just
yeah, you
like
got to embrace it too because it's fun seeing these guys and like some of those guys you never know if they're actually going to stay with your team or not. Some of them maybe 1 year in, out the next
and with
year,
the
and
and thing that thing is with the transfer portal, you don't know if these kids are gonna stay that much or stay like you said, stay a year or two. You don't know if they're gonna stick with your team or not. So you gotta
you might
embrace
not
it.
even see them play more than like 20 snaps. They might only get 20 snaps, maybe not even. Like it
Yeah.
really depends on where they're going, which is crazy. But
But
I
just
think
just getting to see these kids like these guys, fulfill their dream, get ready to play college ball. Some of them will go to the NFL. Especially some of the top guys will more than likely go into the NFL. But like just seeing dreams come true, seeing the next generation year after year, go in, seeing how they'll do. It's always and following recruiting within itself is just crazy because I used to not follow recruiting all that much, but in the last 2 or 3 years I've really gotten into it and fan bases can get crazy. I know now that Auburn has picked up some steam on the recruiting trail with Hugh Freeze. It's fun. Like even though I'm a Bama fan and I want Bama to get the guy, get our guys and not and Auburn, and I don't want Auburn to get them. It's funny. It's fun and funny to see Bama fans and Auburn fans arguing over a certain recruit, like over a Ryan Williams, like seeing Bama fans and Auburn fans butt heads on Twitter and the message boards are hilarious.
yep, no, it seriously is hilarious. But speaking of the transfer, speaking of just whatchamacallit, National Signing Day, that shifts me over to the transfer portal because there's one team, there's a couple teams in particular, but one team didn't really stand out on National Signing Day today was Colorado. But Colorado on the transfer portal
Oh,
currently,
don't make Brandon mad now.
hey, but currently Colorado has, according to 247, has the number one ranked overall transfer class. They
I'm
have
coming for that though. Ole
what did you
Miss,
say?
Ole Miss though.
Yeah, Ole Miss is right behind them. Currently, Colorado has 6 4 stars and 10 3 stars, and Ole Miss has 5 4 stars, 3 3 stars, and then they also have Walter Nolan, the 5 star transfer that from A&M that transferred over to Ole Miss. And it's like Lane Kiffin's getting it done over there too. I wouldn't even be surprised if Evan Stewart possibly made the flip and also went to Ole Miss.
Don't
I don't know
say
if that's
that. Don't say
hey,
that. He's
hey,
coming to Bama.
I'm just saying, I'm staying optimistic with the whole situation. But I mean, you really don't know. And I mean, there's some other guys too, like that we were expecting right when the portal opened up to make their decision right away. Like Cam Ward, for example, prime example of someone that, and I think it was more or less with Cam Ward that he probably wants too much money right now. I think he's going to teams and he might be wanting too much, and teams don't see that much value out of him.
If I was and see, that's the thing. Like I don't have a problem with the transfers want to, especially top transfers wanting to maximize their NIL opportunity. But also, if you're a Cam Ward and you played for Washington State, however many years he's played for Washington State, and you hadn't done really anything, I don't want to go to a contender. I'd want to go to a team that I know that would put a great roster around me, and that I know I could have success with. Whether it's a Ohio State or Florida State, or even Auburn. Like you
Yeah.
take like you put Cam Ward in Auburn with those receivers that they're getting, you know, maybe Auburn can make some things happen, or Oklahoma, or just a team that would like not only elevate your like play, but you can elevate those around you. And so I don't know. I feel like if I was somebody like Cam Ward or like Evan Stewart or Walter Nolan, I don't want to go to a contender. And some of those guys are picking a contender. The
Yeah,
Ole Miss, Ole Miss transfers. I think Ole Miss is a legitimate contender. I think
yeah, they are. And you look at the teams that they lost to last year. I mean, they only lost to a few teams, a handful of teams, which would be Georgia,
and
Bama,
Bama.
yeah, and that's it. And so
That's
it's
it.
like they're making their case right now,
And they're
and
probably going to beat Penn State because Penn State can't score hardly.
yeah, no, that especially with Drew Aller at the helm. But
I don't think
it's
it's Drew Aller's fault, but
I wouldn't say it's Drew Aller's fault either. But I mean, we'll see. But some other guys too,
the
though. In the
biased Ohio State fans, I'm sorry. If there are any Penn State fans listening, I apologize.
if there's any Penn State fans in the comments right now, just comment right now because I really hope that every Big Ten team wins their bowl game except for Michigan. I hope Bama blows them out of the water. I hope Penn State blows Ole Miss out of the water. I really hope they do. I hope the best for them because I love seeing Big Ten teams beat SEC teams, especially, and have that better bowl record too.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
I don't be pissed off about it. But another couple of players in the transfer portal too. We're talking about this guy a lot when the portal first opened up. Trevor Etienne. He hasn't found a destination yet either, and he's
Georgia,
one of the top.
I can already tell you, it's Georgia.
I wouldn't be surprised, especially with. I mean, I don't know. Where do you think Malik Murphy's going though?
I don't know. That one's a tough one because, and this is where I come back to the calendar too. Is Malik Murphy didn't want to transfer from Texas in the middle of the bowl prep, getting ready for the playoff, getting ready for the national championship. He didn't want to transfer during all this, but there's such a limited window, like a 30-day window, and the bowl and the transfer portal opened on like December 4th on 30-day window. That's like January 2nd or 3rd, and that you have to get in the portal and make a decision. And so I don't know. I think this was kind of forced upon him. He didn't want to do it right away. I think if I was Auburn, I'd go take a look at Auburn and Malik Murphy. If I was Ohio State, I would. I know he's got some visits set up with like South Carolina, Baylor, TCU, and I saw Tulane as well. I saw Tulane as one of them as well. So I don't know.
I'm not too
Another
sure.
one is Malachi Nelson. That one was the one I think that shocked a lot of people. It's because a lot of people thought he was the one that was going to take over after Caleb Williams.
And obviously now he transferred out, so it's not looking great for USC. Well, I mean they did get Will Howard, but it's
I
like
don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if
I didn't pay attention to the Big 12 enough, but from what I did pay attention to the Big 12 and the few Kansas State games that I watched, like say the Texas game when Kansas State played Texas and Will Howard kind of crapped the bed at the end, held onto the ball way too long, couldn't make a read. I mean, I don't know.
I think Will Howard could have stayed at Kansas State, and because I mean, now you're in a conference without Oklahoma and Texas. I think you'd have a much better shot to win it. I mean, you got a couple teams coming in like Arizona and Utah, but I mean,
and with Utah, that's going to be crazy next year too. I know we've talked about it before, but Cam Rising coming back, man, what the?
What was it? That's 35th year of college football.
Yeah, that is. I think it's the 7th or 8th, but it's like that is insane that Cam Rising is going to be back next year. Oh, but
another thing that's trending, that's being that's really elevated the bar with the transfer portal is Oregon. They're going to get Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore, which is just crazy because Dylan Gabriel is on his like 85th year of college football, and Dante Moore is going to be a true sophomore.
Hey, what if Dante Moore beat out Dylan Gabriel? I don't think it's going to happen. I think Dylan Gabriel wins that starting job with ease, but it could happen.
It could. I mean, and with Dylan Gabriel's tendency to get injured some, I feel like would get getting some reps. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, the transfer portal is just like I've said before. I think there needs to be some guidelines on it, some guardrails, some rules. But right now, it's just chaos and pandemonium, and I'm here for it. Like I said, Evan Stewart, if you're listening to this, come home, come to Bama, please.
Come to the Ohio State University. The Ohio State. No, I'm just kidding. He's not coming to Ohio State, and I don't want him either way.
You never know. He might.
But before getting too crazy with anything else, right now, we haven't done this in a while. I want to talk some NFL football, man.
Yeah.
I want to talk about potential playoff picture. Obviously, I think the AFC is a lot more chaotic than the NFC right now. I mean, looking at the AFC, obviously, the Ravens, I'm pretty sure, the Ravens sit atop the AFC right now, obviously Dolphins right under them, Chiefs right below there. The Jags are still in that picture. Same with the Browns, Bengals. But then after that, it's like you got the Bengals are 8-6, the Colts are 8-6, the
Bills
Texans
are 8-6.
the Bills are 8-6, and then the Steelers are 7-7. Broncos are also
Broncos are 7-7.
it's like and even the Raiders are 6-8, but
And
technically
no, the Raiders aren't going nowhere.
I don't think they are, but it's like technically they're still in the hunt and still could get there. But it's like that AFC side is just so chaotic because right now, too, they announced today that CJ Stroud will not be out of concussion protocol this weekend. I'm pretty sure the Texans play the Browns, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that because of fantasy football. I have CJ on my fantasy team, even though I lost this week in the
Of
playoffs,
course you do.
which sucked. But it's like if the Texans are without CJ Stroud against the Browns, I don't know. I mean, the Bears competed with the Browns last week, so I can't really say much. Yes, the Texans do play the Browns on Christmas Eve, and I don't know. And that's a big game for both those teams. To say the Browns lose, then they both have the same record. They both are that.
I mean, the AFC is chaotic, but I mean, I want to talk about the NFC, man. The 49ers. It doesn't look like anybody's going to beat them right now. If the 49ers can stay healthy, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, the Bosa brothers, Chase Young, and on the offensive line with Trent Williams, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, they have been rolling right now. They blew out the Eagles a couple weeks ago. I'm sure, if they played the Cowboys, they'd blast them too.
But
it is just crazy what the 49ers are doing. If they don't win it all,
the game of the week, though, is this week on Christmas Day at 7:15 primetime matchup.
Super Bowl preview.
Ravens and Niners Super Bowl. Yeah,
49ers.
Top team on the AFC versus the top team in the NFC. That's going to be what I'm excited to see.
Have you seen the conspiracy theory with that, though? Have you seen, like, where the Super Bowl logo, like, a couple years ago, the colors were red and blue, or not, orange and blue on the Super Bowl logo, and then it was Rams and Bengals. Last year, it was, like, the Eagle green and the Kansas City red, and then it ended up being Kansas City and the Eagles. And then this year, on this year's Super Bowl logo, it's purple and red, and people think that's the 49ers and Ravens. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. So
kind of funny. And those are the two top teams right now. 49ers currently hold the 1 seed in the NFC. The Ravens hold the one seed in the.
And I mean, that's a make or break game right there. That could be extremely high scoring. I don't think it will be. I think it'll be an average scoring game because both those defenses are pretty elite.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really don't know what that comes down to in that game. And I mean, I think the Niners come out with at least 2 wins at the end of the year because aside from playing the Ravens, they play the Commanders and they play the Rams at home.
The Niners are gonna win out. I think they'll beat the Ravens on one day.
They have the 1 seed locked, but a different story for the Ravens because the Ravens obviously play the Niners this weekend. That's questionable. Then they play Miami the following weekend on New Year's Eve. And then the week after that, they play the Steelers. And both those last 2 games are home games, but it's like Miami's up in the air. They're questionable. They've been kind of shaky more recently, but the Steelers still have a solid defense. And that's, I don't know.
Steelers just can't score. I mean,
they can't. But I mean, and they got Mitchell Trubisky as their quarterback right now, which doesn't help them any much either. But
I think the thing is which team is not only the most healthy come playoff team or come playoff time, but like they're the most seasoned, I guess. Like I don't know, like because Miami.
What kind of season are we talking about, though, Bryant?
I'm just messing. Like which team is ready for it? Like which team, can compete, against or coming down the stretch. What team can handle the playoff pressure? What teams can when stuff breaks down in the playoffs, because we've seen the NFL playoffs before, nothing goes right. I mean, when everything starts to go wrong, how do you handle that? Because I mean, there's year after year, it's been the Chiefs. They've whether how mediocre they seem sometimes in the regular season, they find a way to win in the playoffs, and I can't stand them, but you got to respect them for that. They find a way to win the playoffs. When you think a team,
Imagine if the Chiefs don't have a home playoff bye, like a home playoff game to start
Yeah.
off. They don't have that bye. That's crucial right there.
Yeah.
Like
And
coming out of
we'll see with that. I mean, I think, I mean, like I said, the Chiefs, they might not have they might not be in the running for the 1 seed anymore, but I mean they still might depending on what happens down the stretch. But like I said, I'm not betting against them right now. I mean I've done that in the past. I did it last year, and I can't stand the Chiefs, but you can't. It's like betting against Nick Saban in college football. You bet against Nick Saban, you're more than likely going to lose. I mean, you know,
yeah, I don't know. I'm just intrigued to see what kind of close.
plus the refs are more than likely on Patrick Mahomes' side after him complaining about the offside call.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I'm interested to see what happens in the NFC South. Going back to that, with you got Tampa Bay and you got the Buccaneers and the Saints tied at the top of that division,
Yeah.
both
And
7-7 right.
you still got the Falcons in there, but
And you still got the Falcons that are 6-8. But I mean, like the Buccaneers could be having a shaky end because they host the Jaguars this weekend, then they host the Saints, then they go to the Panthers. But the next two games are questionable for the Bucks, and then the Saints at the same time they play the Rams this weekend, then they play the Bucks, and then they play the Falcons. And it's like both those teams, like the Falcons still could end up winning that division, whether they like it or not. They play the Colts, the Bears, and the Saints. I don't know if they could beat the Colts, but it's like all three of those teams have a chance to win out and potentially win the division, which is
I don't know. That I mean the NFC South is definitely up for grabs. I watched the Saints on my birthday a couple of weeks ago. I went and watched the Saints and Panthers play, and that was one of the most god awful games I've ever been to. Like it's just
probably because there's a god awful quarterback on that team. But
no. First of all, Bryce Young has no help. I watched that team in person. The receivers are ass. The offensive line is ass. They are terrible everywhere. And so, I saw Bryce Young throw it up to some wide open receivers, and they either dropped it or they couldn't. They weren't about it. I mean, I don't
you know
know.
who that sounds like to me? Justin Fields. He had 3 drops on Sunday that could have been touchdowns. Wide open, deep ball to Robert Tonyan, who most quarterbacks can't even make that throw. Had it on the money, and Robert Tonyan just dropped it. Obviously, Darnell Mooney dropping the game winner, too. And then a couple other drops.
I mean, okay, the one at the end was a little. I could see it because Darnell Mooney probably didn't expect
Exactly. And I understand that.
the ball to just fall right there. I mean, I could see that. I don't know.
At the same time, though, it's like, I mean, from an outside perspective looking in, and I'm just looking in at a perspective as a fan, but it didn't look too hot. And all Bears fans are calling for Darnell Mooney's head now.
Hey, at least you're not a Broncos fan. When there's a little bit of hope, they go from 1-5 to 7-6, and there's some hope for the playoffs. You got a Saturday night game against the Lions, and you blow it. At least you're not
against the Lions team that was beatable.
Or at least you're not the Chargers, and you give up 63 points to Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that, Brian.
I'm not a Chargers fan, but I need this guy start winning some Super Bowls so I can make some money off his card.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but yeah, I don't know. But I mean, Super Bowl is up for grabs this year, kind of, and we're definitely seeing that potential matchup this weekend on Christmas Day. I couldn't be more hyped for it, and I think most people watching this could not be. If you didn't know that game was happening this weekend, like that's going to make Christmas right there. If you get some crappy presents, look forward to that primetime game on Monday night.
Oh yeah, and I'm waiting to see what Josh gets me for Christmas. I mean,
oh yeah, whatever you say.
No, but there's some before we end the show, there's some bowl games this week, man. We're not going to do a whole like pick 'em segment on them, but we're going to pick them. Like we're not going to get into depth about it. We're just going to pick them, see what happens. Like I said earlier, the Sun Belt is 1-3 after Old Dominion blew it against Western Kentucky. Marshall dropped the ball against UTSA. Appalachian State's the only one to have won. Georgia Southern got blasted by Ohio, but UCLA won their bowl game. Texas Tech beat Cal, but this week, Thursday night, you got the Boca Raton Bowl between
USF and Syracuse. Yeah.
and I'm gonna go with Syracuse on this one. I think to get a win and to get some more momentum as Fran Brown. I know he's not gonna be coaching in the game because he was just hired, but they're gonna Syracuse has suddenly become a destination. And I know one of our professors, Professor Stevens, is a huge Cuse fan,
Huge Syracuse fan. Yeah.
and he's
Loves
looking
the
for
orange.
and he's looking forward to what's happening at Syracuse, and so I'm gonna go with the Cuse here. They're favored by 3, so I'm gonna go with Cuse.
I think Syracuse will win too. I don't really have much to say about it. I didn't really go in depth on bowl prep, but I mean, there's also some other good games too. Obviously, Friday, Georgia Tech and UCF, and the
Gasparilla Bowl,
Gasparilla Bowl, which South Alabama could have been playing in. But
and
I the thing is that
I'm
game's.
kind of glad we're home. I don't have to go very far, so
I mean, I get that, and I can respect that, but I don't really know who I have in that game. I think a bigger bowl matchup though. Skipping ahead of that game to
I'm
Saturday.
going with Georgia Tech in that game. By the way,
All right, whatever you say. We'll see if they end up winning.
who are you picking?
I'm
You have to
picking
pick a game
UCF.
too now.
I'm picking UCF. I'm picking UCF. I don't want to pick every game though, but I just wanted to skip to the Duke and Troy game and the Birmingham Bowl. That's going to be a good game, but the issue is obviously you don't have Elko, you don't have Riley Leonard, you don't have a couple other guys too that they lost, and I think Troy wins that game big because Troy
Troy's
really
actually favored in this game, 7.5, and it's kind of in Troy's backyard. I mean, Birmingham is not that far from Troy. It's in the state, so you could potentially see Troy have more fans than Duke. So I like Troy in this one. Another one I like is Utah Northwestern. Northwestern is kind of after 1-11 last year. They're
yeah
kind of
they
like
shocked the world this year.
they're what everybody hoped Colorado would be. Sorry, Brandon, but 1-11, the 7-5. That's better than what Colorado did. But no, I like Utah to win this one though. Las Vegas Bowl, another one that's kind of in Utah's
No,
wheelhouse.
hey, no, I'm just letting you know. I think Northwestern wins that game, and that's justice for. I don't want to say justice, but in regards to Pat Fitzgerald, after losing Pat Fitzgerald before the season started, you were 1-11 last year. You lose your starting coach over the summer, and then you completely turn it around and make a bowl game. I think Northwestern wins that game. I don't know. I just got to
Utah. Though. I'm going Utah.
I got to go with the team that's kind of from my city, even though I don't claim Chicago. But
Then you got a team that's competing in their first bowl game ever. That and James Madison that didn't know if they were going to get to make a bowl game because of the eligibility thing, but weren't able to play in the Sun Belt Championship because of it. But because you didn't have enough eligible teams to fill the 82 game or teams bowl slate, whatever it is. James Madison and Jacksonville State, who won their bowl game against the Cajuns in the New Orleans Bowl, get to play. And so JMU is facing Air Force. Air Force started off the season undefeated. Now they're 8-4. In the Armed Forces Bowl, I'm taking the Dukes to win their bowl game.
I think that JMU comes out on top of that game too. Obviously, just getting a bowl game in general, which is huge for them. And obviously, like you said, you already stated it. Weren't sure if they were going to get a bowl game. Air Force.
A lot of Sun Belt teams playing. I think Sun Belt teams are playing in every bowl game this Saturday except for one, and that's Utah and Northwestern.
Yep, every single bowl game Saturday except for that one. So
and that brings us to our very own South Alabama Jaguars at home for the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Not the home team. They're gonna have to use the away locker rooms, away jerseys, everything else. Kind of unique, but still kind of glad you got that at home feeling, at home field advantage. I don't know what Eastern Michigan has. South is favored by 17 here. I think I'm
yeah,
gonna
that's the crazy that's the crazy part. I mean, I don't know. I think South comes out on top here.
I think Eastern Michigan's quarterback is in the transfer portal too. I don't know. He could have pulled an Austin Reed, get the transfer portal, and come back and play the bowl game and then Thorpe, South Alabama. But we'll see. But I like the Jags here to get their first ever bowl win in program history. I'll be there for that one. So
yeah, I think they come out on top huge. I won't be there, but I'll be watching on ESPN on Saturday. got to root for the Jags, obviously.
And a couple other games that we won't pick, but we're just going to mention the Hawaii Bowl, Coastal Carolina, and San Jose State. Just imagine going all the way from South or North Carolina, whichever Carolina Coastal Carolina is in. I think it's North. Going all the way to Hawaii, San Jose State. That's a yeah. San Jose State's favored by 10. Then you got the Camellia Bowl, Northern Illinois and Arkansas State, and then you got the Idaho Potato Bowl between Utah State and Georgia State. So some mediocre games, but I'm still going to watch. I'm definitely going to be in attendance for South Alabama's game. But it's going to be fun. It's bowl season, and then next week they get even better.
It gets even better, yes, and we'll definitely get into that next week. Probably the main topic of conversation, other than some hopeful big transfer announcements coming soon too.
Maybe the next so.
So can't wait for it at all. Looking forward to it, and that's episode 37, man. 37 episodes in, and we've got some big news on the way for when we get back in the studio. We'll allude to that once the time comes when we're back on campus in the studio, but got lots of big things coming. I know we've said it in the past, but like it's going to be crazy the next time we're back in the studio.
And we hope from both of us, we hope you'll have a Merry Christmas. I hope y'all, get a bunch of presents, spend time with your family. And we just hope y'all have a Merry Christmas and New Year's also around the corner. So
yep. Heck yeah. Start making those New Year's resolutions ASAP.
I'm probably not going to keep, but we'll make one.
Nobody ever keeps them, but heck yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe, give us any suggestions in the comments, and we can't wait to see you guys next week for episode 38.